Hello, and welcome to the newest and most special episode of Off the Shelf. Today is very different and very special because we will not be reviewing a manga today, or talking about them, rather. But today, as you will see, we're talking about Mossflower by, I think I heard once that it was Brian Jacques, although Brian Jacques, I never actually really bothered to find out. This is the Redwall Series is a series that is deep in my childhood, I suppose, despite it having been made like 10 years beforehand. And although this book that I'm gonna be doing today, Mossflower, is technically a prequel, it is the first one I read, and I think it's fine to read first. Here's my copy. You can see how busted up it is, because this was actually originally my oldest brother's copy. He probably got it when it was new. So in like late 80s, like I'm amazed that this book is still like together. Like you can just see how like well worn and like red it is. There's lots of creases on the spine and everything. But this I thought I'd do something different this time. So for the stream, I'm just gonna read chapter 1, maybe 2, and then I'll make a separate video talking about the book. No, I might not even do that. That's a bit much. I think this book speaks for itself. I'll just go over the basic plot real quick. So the idea is that in this world of Mossflower, it's not really fantasy. It's, I guess you could call it like low fantasy. The idea is all the main characters are critters, like mice, shrews, and moles. And they sort of survive against the predators, so to speak, of the foxes, the rats, the wolves, that sort of thing. And it's sort of like high adventure in a small world. So I think we'll get into it. It's got that nice old book smell. It's always nice. Here's a little map of the Mossflower Woods. That's fun. It's always nice. So we start with a little prologue here, and then we'll get into chapter 1. Late autumn winds sighed fitfully around the open gatehouse door, rustling brown gold leaves in the fading afternoon. Bella of Brockhull snuggled deeper into her old armchair by the fire. Through half-closed eyes, she watched the small mouse peering around the doorway at her. "Come in, little one, and close the door." Excuse me. The small mouse did as he was bidden, encouraged by the badger's friendly smile. He clambered up onto the arm of the chair and settled himself against a cushion. "You said that you would tell me a story, Miss Bella." The badger nodded slowly. "Everything you see around you, the harvest that has been gathered, from the russet apples to the golden honey, is yours to enjoy in freedom. Listen now, as the breeze sweeps the last autumn leaves off the world of winter. I will tell you of the time long before Redwall Abbey was built in Mossflower. In those days there was no freedom for woodlanders. We were oppressed cruelly under the harsh rule of Verdauga Green-Eyes and his daughter Sarmina. It was a mouse like yourself who saved Mossflower. His name is known to all, Martin the Warrior. Ah, my little friend, I am grown old. So are my comrades. Their sons and daughters are fathers and mothers now, but that is life. The seasons still look new to young ones. The food tastes fresher in the mouths of the young ones than it does in my own. As I sit here in the warmth and peace, it all lives again in my memory. A strange tale of love and war, friend and foe, great happenings and mighty deeds. Gaze into the fire, young one. Listen to me, and I will tell you the story. Book 1, Cotir. Mossflower lay deep in the grip of midwinter beneath a sky of leaden gray that showed tinges of scarlet and orange on the horizon. A cold mantle of snow draped the landscape, covering the flatlands to the west. Snow was everywhere, filling ditches, drifting high against hedgerows, making paths invisible, smoothing the contours of earth in its white embrace. The gaunt, leafless ceiling of Mossflower Wood was penetrated by constant snowfall, which carpeted the sprawling woodland floor, building canopies on evergreen shrubs and bushes. Winter had muted the earth. This muffled stillness was broken only by a traveler's pause. A sturdily built young mouse with quick, dark eyes was moving confidently across the snowbound country. Looking back, he could see his tracks disappearing northward into the distance. Farther south, the flatlands rolled off endlessly, flanked to the west by the faint shape of distant hills. Well to the east stood the long, ragged fringe marking the marches of Mossflower. His nose twitched at the elusive smell of burning wood and turf from some hearth fire. Cold winds soughed from the treetops, causing whirls of snow to dance in icy spirals. The traveler gathered his ragged cloak tighter, adjusted an old, rusting sword that was slung across his back, and trudged steadily forward, away from the wilderness, to where other creatures lived. It was a forbidding place made mean by poverty. Here and there he saw signs of habitation. The dwellings, ravaged and demolished, made pitiful shapes under snowdrifts. Rearing high against the forest, a curious building dominated the ruined settlement. A fortress, crumbling, dark, and brooding. It was a symbol of fear to the woodland creatures of Mossflower. This was how Martin the warrior first came to Cotir, place of the wildcats. In a mean hovel on the south side of Cotir, the Stickle family crouched again around a low turf fire. It gusted fitfully as the night winds pierced the slatted timbers, where mud chinking had not been replaced. A timid scratch at the door caused them to jump nervously. Ben Stickle picked up a billet of firewood, motioning his wife Goody to keep their 4 little ones back in the shadows. As the good wife Stickle covered her brood with coarse burlap blankets, Ben took a firmer grip on the wood and called out harshly in his gruffish voice. "Be off with you, and leave us alone. There's not enough food in here to go round a decent hedgehog family. You've already taken half of all we have to swell the larders in Cotir." Ben, 'tis I, Earthclaw. Open up, bur, 'tis freezing out here." As Ben Stickle opened the door, a homely-faced mole trundled by him and hurried across to the fire, where he stood rubbing his digging claws together in front of the flames. The little ones peeped out from their blankets. Ben and Goody turned anxious faces towards their visitor. Earthclaw rubbed warmth into his cold nose as he talked in the curious rustic mole speech. "Vermin patrols be out, bur. Weasels and stoats and the like. They'm a looking for more victuals." Gertie shook her head as she wiped a little one's snout on her apron. "I knew it. We should have run off and left this place, like the others. Where in the name of Spikes will we find food to pay their tolls?" Ben Stickle threw down the piece of firewood despairingly. "Where could we run in midwinter with 4 little ones? They'd perish long afore spring." Earthclaw produced a narrow strip of silver birch bark and held a paw to his mouth, indicating silence. Scratched on the bark in charcoal was a single word, Corim. Beneath it was a simple picture map showing a route into Mossflower Woods, far from Cotir. Ben studied the map, torn between the chance of escape and his family's predicament. The frustration was clear on his face. "Bang, bang! Open up in there. Come on. Get this door open. This is an official Cotir's patrol. Soldiers! Ben took one last hasty glance at the strip of bark and threw it on the fire. As Goody lifted the latch, the door was thrust forcefully inward. She was swept to one side as the soldiers packed into the room, out of the winter night chill. They pushed and shoved at each other roughly. A ferret named Blacktooth and a stoat named called Splitnose seemed to be in charge of the patrol. Ben's Stickles sighed with relief as they turned away from the burning strip of bark and stood with their backs to the fire. "Well now, Dozy Spikes, where are you hiding all the bread and cheese and October ale?" Ben could scarce keep the hatred from his voice as he answered the sneering Blacktooth. "It's been many a long season since I tasted cheese or October ale. There's bread on the shelf, but only enough for my family." Splitnose spat into the fire and reached for the bread. Ben's Stickle was blocked from stopping the stoat by a barrier of spear hafts as he tried to push forward. Goody placed her stinging paw on her husband's spikes. "Please, Ben, don't fight 'em, the great bullies." Earthclaw chimed in. "Yar bain't much I can do against spears, Ben." Blacktooth turned to the mole as if seeing him for the first time. "Huh? What are you doing here, Blink-Eye?" One of the little hedgehogs threw the sacking aside and faced the stoat boldly. "He came in for warm by our fire. You leave him alone." Splitnose burst out laughing, spraying crumbs from the bread he was eating. "Look out, Blackie. There's more of 'em under that blanket. I'd watch 'em if I were you." A nearby weasel threw back the covering, exposing the other 3 young ones. Blacktooth sized them up. They look big enough to do a day's work." Goodwife Stickle sprang fiercely in front of him. "You let my little ones be. They ain't harmed nobody." Blacktooth seemed to ignore her. He knocked the loaves from Split-Nose's paws. Then, turning to a weasel, he issued orders. "Pick that bread up, and no sly munching. Deliver it to the stores when we get back to the garrison." Waving his spear, he signaled the patrol out of the hut. As Blacktooth left, he called back to Ben and Goody. "I want to see those 4 hogs on the fields tomorrow. Either that, or you can spend all the rest of winter safe and warm in Cotier dungeons." Earthclaw kept an eye to the crack in the door, watching the patrol make its way toward Cotier. Ben wasted no time. He began wrapping the young ones in all the blankets they possessed. "Right, that's it. Enough is enough. We go tonight. You're right, old girl. We should have left to live in the woods with the rest long ago. What do you say, Earthclaw?" The mole stood with his eye pressed against the crack in the door. "Yo, come here. Look at this." While Ben shared the crack with his friend, Goody continued swathing her young ones with blankets. "What is it, Ben? They're not coming back, are they?" "No, wife. Ho, ho, ho. Look at that, by hokey. See the punch he landed on that weasel's nose? Go on, give it to him, laddo." Ferdy, the little one who had spoken up, scurried over and tugged at Ben's paw. "Punch? Who punched a weasel? What's happening?" Ben described the scene as he watched it. "It's a mouse. Big strong feller, too, he is. They're trying to capture him. That's it. Now kick him again, mouse. Go on. Ha ha ha. You'd think a full patrol of soldiers could handle a mouse, but not this one. Must be a real trained warrior. Phew! Look at that. He's knocked Blacktooth flat on his back. Pity they're hanging onto a sword like that. By the spikes, he'd cause some damage if he had the blade between his paws, rusty as it is." Ferdy jumped up and down. "Let me see. I want to look." Earthclaw turned slowly away from the door. "Bain't much use, little edge pig. Them gorem him down, eh, and roped him up too. War a pity. They be too many for him to fight. Him a brave warrior, too." Ben was momentarily crestfallen. Then he clasped his paws together. "Now is the time. While the patrol's busy with the fighter, they've got a job on their paws, dragging him back to the cat's castle. Come on, let's get a-goin' while the goin's good." A short while later, the fire was burning to embers in an empty hut as the little band had trudged in the vast woodland sprawl of Mossflower. Blinking water from their eyes, they kept their heads down against the keen wind. Earthclaw followed up the rear, obliterating the paw tracks from a snowy ground. I think I'll stop there for now. But that was chapter 1 of Mossflower. Thank you for joining me. If there's literally any demand for more, I guess I'll do that. Goodbye.